Hello everyone, Circeon here. How are you all doing today? As you can see, I'm not in the familiar world of Pokemon like I usually am. The reason being is that I, like so many people before me, was struck with the sudden urge to do a full playthrough of Skyrim. However, I didn't want to walk the same worn-trodden path that so many Skyrim players are used to walking, whether that be of the overpowered stealth archer or the overzealous min-maxer who's finished building their character within the span of a single day, which is both why and how I came up with Gorkosh, the self-made orc. You see, Gorkosh has a simple philosophy: if you die, you're weak. However, to sell or use the gear of someone you killed makes you equally weak, because why sell or use the weapons and armor of someone you've vanquished when you can instead forge those very same tools yourself? With that said, let's get into the rules of this run. Rule number 1, I can only use weapons and armor that I myself have forged. Rule number 2, I cannot loot humanoid enemies of their items unless it is required for story or dungeon progression. And rule number 3, I cannot use a potion that I myself haven't crafted. Gorkosh's personal philosophy extends to the field of alchemy as well, so no cave potions for this orc. With the rules of the run now out of the way, let's begin. Helgen Keep goes about as well as you'd expect. I mostly just let Ralof take aggro while I provided pitiful support in the form of my fists. Once out of Helgen, I began to forge all the flora I could get my grubby green hands on whilst on my way over to Riverwood, only stopping to touch the warrior stone to gain 20% more experience in my warrior skills. As soon as I was in Riverwood, I talked to Alvor in order to complete the smithing tutorial, which awarded me a fine iron dagger and a fine hide helmet, which I paired with some leather armor, courtesy of the leather generously donated by the wolf pack Ralof and I encountered on our way over here. Speaking of Ralof, I found him discussing our escape from Helgen with his ma Gerder, who beseeched me to relay this information to the Jarl of Whiterun, going so far as to shower me with a volley of food and items to do so. And it's here where I decided to implement a fourth rule into this challenge, which is that I'm not allowed to accept gifted items. Gorkosh doesn't like the concept of handouts. He finds it belittling, as if people are doubting his ability to survive without them. And on the topic of survivability, it was time for Gorkosh to put his to the test by assailing Embershard Mine. And despite only being equipped with an iron dagger, Gorkosh fought with a ferocity that would have surely made Papa Malakath proud. With all the bandits cleared out, I was free to mine up all the iron before making my way over to Whiterun, not to continue the main quest, but to smelt all the iron ore into bars which I crafted into some iron plate armor. Unfortunately, I didn't have quite enough to complete my set, nor forge the weapon I wanted. So after a quick skirmish at Halted Stream Camp and a brisk jaunt around the province of Whiterun, I mined up all the nodes of iron and corundum necessary to equip myself with a full set of fine iron plate armor as well as a fine steel war axe and shield. With all that done, Gorkosh had successfully entered his 1.0 phase. There's still plenty of work to be done, but for now, Gorkosh was content with what he had. You'd think he'd run headlong into the main quest line now that he was all kitted up, but Gorkosh instead elected to muck about with the companions, at least until the part where he was offered the gift of lycanthropy, and as stated before, Gorkosh don't accept no gifts. So it was up to Dragon's Reach for Gorkosh, where the court mage took one look at our gruff and grizzled orc and told him to throw himself into the nearest dungeon. Bleakfang's Barrow was Gorkosh's first real test of his philosophy in action, and while the giant frostbite spider gave him a bit of trouble, we managed to clear the rest of the dungeon without further issue. Upon our return, the Jarl of Whiterun, Balgruff the Greater, decided that an orc walking into his palace us more than once was a crime punishable by death, and sent us off to be burned alive by a dragon attacking his western province. His plan unfortunately backfired, as not only did I slay the beast, but I absorbed its very soul, which meant by ancient Nordic custom that I was dragonborn. Gorkosh wasn't really interested in Nordic legends. However, Balgruuf was, and upon revelation of our draconic heritage, he showered Gorkosh with gifts and praise, most of which we burned in the nearest fire. Lydia, however, was different. I had plans for our recently appointed housecarl, and those plans involved making her the steward of Golden Hills Plantation. Right after we appropriated it, of course. Here we could begin planting some alchemical ingredients in order to brew up some health potions and start bumping up our alchemy skill. First things first though, I had to finish sprucing up our recently procured plantation, which involved me having to turn some of the wheat I gathered into straw, since I hadn't purchased a single item from a shop up until this point, and wanted to see just how long Gorkosh could go without doing so. Before beginning my first big alchemy grind, I made sure to swap out the warrior stone for the thieves stone, as well as take a short nap in order to nap the well-rested bonus, which combined would increase the experience I gained from stealth skills by 30%. By the end of my first alchemy session, I had managed to bump my alchemy skill up to 31, and put 2 perk points into alchemist in order to make any future potions I created 20% stronger. While selling the many potions and poisons I made in Riverwood, a dragon attacked which ended up killing Girder, and while I was reading my letter of inheritance, I was reminded of another letter Gorkosh had come across upon his travels, that of an assassination note signed by Astrid. I didn't know when I was gonna get around to returning the favor, but I figured that now I was level 13, I probably had just enough power to show her what happens when you send assassins after Gorkosh. Unfortunately for Gorkosh, Astrid got the better of him during their first bet, but we pulled through during round 2, putting a permanent end to Astrid's assassinal armada. You may think that Gorkosh would unleash that same fury on the rest of the Dark Brotherhood, but the way he sees it is that her name was on the letter, so she was the focal point of his anger. In any case, Gorkosh was teetering on the edge of level 14, so he threw himself into another dungeon in order to level up. This was a very harrowing mistake, as poor Gorkosh died about 4 times, courtesy of the Restless Draugrs and their Frostbite spell, or so Gorkosh would have you believe. In truth, we weren't really pumping out all that much damage, but that would change now that we've cleared Dead Man's Respite and reached level 14. There better be some good loot in this chest after all the trouble I went through to... You know what? Maybe the loot was the friends we made along the way. You may be wondering why I'm ranting and raving about being level 14. Well, that's because this random Argonian located at the Riften Docks hands us this Dwemer lexicon, which Gorkosh desperately tried to throw in the river, which would grant us one of the strongest boons in Skyrim when returned to its resting place within Avajan Zel. Before entering the decrepit Dwemer ruin, I made sure to park my horse close to the closest exit so I could transport all the items necessary for my master plan back to my plantation. Those items being the large decorative and non-decorative Dwemer struts, bent Dwemer scrap metal, large Dwemer plate metal, and solid Dwemer metal. For those of you who have no idea why these items are so important, just know that they'll help me get really strong really fast. Also, because I've decided to not purchase items from shops, these Dwemer contraptions are Gorkosh's only way of securing filled soul gems, at least for now. With Avajan Zel sufficiently plundered and the Dwemer lexicon returned to its rightful place, we've obtained the boon Ancient Knowledge, which hastens blacksmithing by by 15%, as well as 84 Dwarven ingots from smelting all those Dwemer items I mentioned earlier. After a quick trip to Ironbreaker Mine in Dawnstar to acquire some much needed iron ore, which I turned into iron ingots, I returned to my plantation and began crafting a bunch of Dwarven bows. As an aside, anytime I'm doing one of these massive grinds, just assume I have the proper stone and well-rested bonus for the extra experience. Needing more Dwarven metal ingots and iron in order to boost my smithing to my required level, I decided to make my way over to Markarth in order to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. After some prison shenanigans I was a part of due to assaulting Eltress for fiddling around in my pants, I made my way over to Understone Keep, where upon taking a single look at our gruff and grizzled orc, the court mage told us to throw ourselves into the nearest dungeon. We did so, and after surviving our encounter with Calcemo's pet spider, he was so terrified that he gave us the key to his museum containing his lifelong research, which we naturally plundered for all its valuables. I then smelted down those valuables along with some iron I mined within the left-hand mine nearby and silver I got from my prison adventure in order to make 177 Dwarven metal ingots, 42 iron ingots, and 9 silver ingots. With these materials in hand, Gorkosh got to work crafting many more Dwarven bows, which boosted his smithing skill to 51. But why stop there? After grabbing the bows from my last smithing session, I sat down and improved their quality, which shot my smithing skill all the way up to 63. After gathering some ingredients and slaying yet another dragon who dared to assail my farm, I made my way over to Halted Stream Camp to mine up all the remaining nodes of iron I had left after my first time assaulting the compound. Once that was done, Gorkosh made his way to the orc strongholds of Mor Kazgor and Dushnik Val, as well as Biogulch Mine, in order to mine up all the orichalcum ore he could get his hands on, turning them all into orichalcum ingots which he would use to forge his endgame armor. So we brewed up a potion of fortified smithing before forging a full set of orcish plate armor along with a war axe and shield, which we improved to legendary quality after downing said potion. With that, Gorkosh had successfully reached phase 2.0 in his journey, and after another alchemy session which brought our skill up to 60, we sold our potions and swapped out our warrior stone for the lord stone for the plus 50 to armor and 25% magic resistance. Now kitted out, I decided it was high time to complete the main story, so I climbed the 7,000 steps, making sure to say hi to the frost troll on my way to High Hrothgar, where upon my entry the old wizards took one look at our gruff and grizzled orc and told us to throw ourselves into the nearest dungeon. Unfortunately, the item we sought had been swiped up by Delphine, who wanted to watch us suck up a dragon's soul. For research, of course. Before that, though, I made sure to return to High Hrothgar, where a group of old men shouted at old Gorkosh to get off their lawn, before then returning the Horn of Jurgen Windcaller to Ustengrav, making sure to spam A while I did so in order to receive 2 dragon souls instead of just 1. We then moseyed ourselves over to Kynesgrove, where we watched Alduin revive one of his war buddies, who we proceeded to bury back in the dirt less than a minute later. With the dragon's soul sucked, Delphine revealed to us her laundry list of conspiracy theories surrounding the Thalmor, as well as her plan for us to assault their compound. Done and doner. With the Thalmor embassy raided, we learn of some hermit named Esbern who's hiding within the ratway of Riften sewer system, and after dragging his keister back to Delphine, they agreed to head to Skyhaven Temple for some lore or whatever. Gorkosh was kinda tuning out everything Delphine was saying at this point. We learn of some riveting revelations once there, specifically that we need a shout in order to defeat Alduin, and to learn said shout we needed to speak to Parthenax on top of the throat of the world. Unfortunately, his draconic mind cannot comprehend said shout, though he knows a way for us to learn it despite that. An elder scroll, an item of unfathomable power and and mystery, said to exist and come from outside of time itself. A shard of the very fabric of reality. I found it lying in some decrepit cave. And it would seem that the key to Alduin's defeat comes in the form of a song. Let's take a listen. Alduin, Alduin, put up a fight, you sure tried to win, but my potion-chugging orc put an end to Alduin. Alduin, Alduin, fled from a fight you could never win, and so it was I gave pursuit to World's End for Alduin. Alduin, Alduin, took to the afterlife for his din, but I arrived, which spelled the end, the final breath of Alduin. With Alduin's defeat, Gorkosh could feel new power flowing through his veins. Perhaps it was a side effect of reading the Elder Scroll, or maybe Sun Shao jostled something around in Gorkosh's brain. But whatever had previously prevented us from enchanting was now gone. It was now time for Gorkosh to ascend to his final form. I started off by using damn near every ingredient I owned to bump up my alchemy skill to 82 before heading out to Ironbind Barrow to acquire and subsequently disenchant the steel battle axe of Fiery Souls. Upon returning to my plantation, I disenchanted every other enchanted item I had found along my journey before enchanting my vast array of plundered loot, which bumped my enchanting up to 57. With no more filled soul gems to his name, Gorkosh went on a long and grueling journey to the many camps and caves of Skyrim in order to fill all his empty soul gems, as well as find two very specific enchanted items in particular. The first item, some dwarven bracers of wielding, were found in a waterlogged chest in Blackreach, and the second item, a glass sword of garnering, was found within the moldering ruins. And although I made that sound rather simplistic, this was an arduous adventure that took me 2 real-world days to complete. Before returning to my plantation, however, I made a quick stop to Coldseger Mine to mine up all its gold ore, receiving a very cold reception from its less than enthused inhabitants. As soon as I arrived back at my plantation, I gathered all the dwarven metal and iron ingots I acquired on my adventure, which along with all the gold I mined up in Coldseger were used to bring my smithing level to its resting spot of 87. Unfortunately though, I hadn't managed to trap enough souls to reach enchanting level 100. But luckily, there was a very simple solution to that issue. By taking a quick boat ride over the Solstheim, I could storm the local mine and grab the black book hidden within, which would grant me the boon Scholar's Insight, allowing Gorkosh to acquire 2 skill points from reading skill books instead of 1. After that, it was only a matter of finding the books A Tragedy in Black, located in Glenmoral Cavern, Catalog of Armor Enchantments within Fort Amal, Catalog of Weapon Enchantments within the White Hall of Dawnstar, Enchanter's Primer located inside Carlotta's house within Whiterun, and Twin Secrets hiding in a basket within the Jarl's house of Winterhold. After reading that final book, I had reached 100 enchanting and grabbed the perk Extra Effect, which would allow me to put 2 enchantments on a single piece of gear. But I wasn't finished quite yet. I then bumped my alchemy up to level 100 thanks to some basic alchemy gear I whipped up and brewed up a few potions of enchanting which I drank before creating my endgame crafting gear. With said gear equipped, I brewed up some potions of fortified smithing and enchanting before forging 2 new orcish war axes which I improved to legendary quality along with my previously crafted armor after downing one of said potions. After that, I went back inside to my enchanting table and drank my fortify enchanting potions before enchanting all my gear. And here are the end results. I have 2 weapons, one for general use and soul trapping and one for mages/dragons. My one-handed attacks are nearly 200% more powerful, I block 94% more damage with my shield, resist 94% of magic damage, and can also create health potions which restore nearly 200 health a pop. With no further need for all my enchanting perks, I made the skill legendary and allocated all my new perk points into more pressing skills like blocking and heavy armor. And for those of you curious to see Gorkosh's well-deserved and self-made power in action, Akatosh was generous enough to drop an ancient dragon on our head, which Gorkosh slew with only 5 swings of his war axe. Now that we're all kitted out, it's time for us to tackle the 2 DLC bosses. I wonder if the Elder Scroll has any songs about defeating those 2 as well. Let's take a look and find out. Lord Harkon, lives in a castle long forgone. His daughter seems to be pretty nice, but as for him, he's cold as ice. Lord Harkon, just one way that he'd be gone. We'd need a bow to end his tale. So 'twas off for us, Forgotten Vale. Snow Elf man, now armed with the bow in hand, we stood to face, gave Bo a bash, and Serana's father was turned to ash. Mirak over on Solstheim really thought that he could hide, but I was now hot on his trail. I bought a boat and then set sail. Mirak over on Solstheim. I had to burn a lot of time to Nelof's games and Freya's loss when finally met our final boss. Mirak over on Solstheim. Our fated bout, it was time. He went down and I prevailed, and thus so ends Gorkosh's tale. Thanks for watching to the end of the video. If you enjoyed Gorkosh's tale, then feel free to leave a like. And while you're at it, comment down below any other challenges you'd like to see me tackle the next time I play this game. That's all from me. Take care, and have a great rest of your day.
Do you get to the Cloud District very often? Oh, what am I saying? Of course you don't.
Plan on burning everything down, do you? Damn fool.